Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 10-Minute Tea Discussion podcast, where I, Nora, your host, will break some exciting news from Southeast Asia, a small but fast-growing region in the Asian continent. Now, let's stream into our 13th episode. Has influencer marketing peaked, or is the real test just beginning? For today's episode, it's my great honor to have the participation of our guest, Hazel Yap, co-founder and COO of Serious Media, sharing her viewpoints about challenges on Singapore's influencer marketing. Welcome to the show, Hazel. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good, Nora. Thank you.
Okay, Hazel, before we dive into our chat, I just want to share with you some figures of the 2025 market, showing how far has influencer marketing has matured in Singapore. So, according to Anyminds report, 72% of Singaporean consumers have made a purchase based on influencer recommendations, and the consumer demographic spreads across three generations, X, Y, Z. In terms of budget allocation, 78% of surveyed Singapore companies now have dedicated influencer marketing items in their annual budgets. So for brands, they're no longer treating influencer marketing as optional experimental, but as a core tactic. For consumers, they start to value influencers as another channel in their decision-making process for any purchase. My question for you is that despite these strong indicators of maturity and growth, looking ahead to the coming quarters of 2026, are there potential downside risks or structural weaknesses these figures might also be signaling? In other words, has the rapid expansion of influencer marketing possibly masked deeper challenges, whether in trust sustainability, ROI volatility, regulatory scrutiny, or consumer fatigue that the industry may have overlooked?
I think those stats that you've mentioned made a lot of sense. I see those numbers a lot in my presentation with my partners. So let me give you a bit of a background as well.
Mm,
I think I've observed the change or the pivoting point actually started during COVID. COVID was the time where as an agency, I started receiving a lot more briefs specifically for influencer marketing. And I think it's been 5 to 6 years now.
mm,
I see that transformation from a brand perspective, right? During COVID, brands wake up one morning and they said to themselves, oh, all the past activation that I used to do for my customers, I'm not allowed to do anymore. I can't do on-ground event. I can only go as much as digital marketing, but I needed more than that. So
mm,
then the word influencer marketing sort of came into the picture. And I'm only sharing this with you because on this journey of mine, navigating the whole influencer marketing journey, right? Speaking to different brands, I see that the brand back then, the knowledge that they have on influencer marketing is probably basic. And to where they are right now, to your point of saying they have specifically put down an allocated budget, right,
mm,
in
mm,
their marketing plan. You can tell by this, how much have changed.
mm,
That said, while I like to think that the industry is booming, and it is, but there are definitely risks and weaknesses, right? So I will address this question from both the brand and creators' perspective. So I'll start off with the brand.
mm,
So I think what brands are doing, great, they have a budget there, but most brands are still tracking vanity matrices,
mm,
right? And I'm not saying all brands, but most brands. So what I mean by that is they are still coming to us and say, okay, how many likes I have, reach, views,
mm,
and what we call ROI. Nothing
mm,
wrong with it, but to me, that's not enough. They have the budget there as a line item. It's no longer just an experimental money. You know
mm,
how
mm,
when you start a new channel, right? You're not sure if it works. So
mm,
you call it like, okay, let me experiment that. I think brands have moved away from experiment and saying, okay, I think this is working for me. But the way they are tracking their ROI is still very much those matrices that I mentioned,
mm,
right? And I question whether is that enough. So that's one. The other thing, it's also the risk that no one talks about. Brands treating influencer marketing as a media buy rather than a relationship, right?
mm,
So they actually put money behind it. They will boost some of these posts, but we need to take a step back and ask ourselves, is influencer marketing seen as almost like a media buy channel? Or is it a relationship that the brand is trying to build?
Mm.
So what I would say here is, encouraging brands to do that, because when the relationship breaks, right, so does the trust, and that's what consumers are actually buying. So that's one from the brand's perspective. Now on the creator side as well, right? There's a lot more creators today as compared to many years back. And what I'm saying, creators now comes in different tier. It used to be celebrities, macro influencers, to now what we call micro and even nano, the everyday people.
Mm.
So, I think as more brands are now competing for the same tier, the mid-tier creator, fees actually goes up. But does that mean that performance is going up as well? That's a question. That's a risk there. Also, speaking to creators, and last year, Serious Fluence actually put together our first ever creator conference called the Confluence. And we got a chance to actually bring about 150 creators in the same room for the entire day.
Mm.
And one thing that has been spoken a lot about is there's fatigue, right? Creator burnout is also rising,
Mm.
especially amongst the micro influencers who are actually doing a lot of the heavy lifting for brands without long-term contracts or support. So it's very much a one-off that they are operating.
Mm.
So as Serious Fluence, right, the platform, we've been watching this since the very early days, and the conversations with brands have definitely shifted from how do we find influencers to how do we prove this actually works. Something that I personally really enjoy. Like I find myself, the person almost advocating for influencer marketing and seeing that change in brands.
Mm.
To me, that's a delight. I no longer sit there. I used to sit in front of a new client, and really trying to sell the value of influencer marketing. But today it's more of showing, using data to show a brand and say why influencer marketing is actually working for you, and you must have it as part of your marketing mix.
Mm. Your sharing about the background also somehow remind me of how it all started. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
these days, part of social media generation, sometimes I truly forget like how influencer marketing really kickstarted itself. When was it? And so far, how has it grown? But I believe that based on the growth here we have, right? Definitely competition comes. It means
Yeah.
now the market can have more creators, brands, and
Mm-hmm.
noise as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you may see that the space becomes increasingly crowded. How
Mm-hmm.
should companies rethink differentiation? You mentioned just now, most brand companies, they focus on reach and engagement metrics, right?
Yeah.
So what will truly separate high impact influencer strategies from the noise in 2026 based on your opinion?
Mm. I think just one simple line, I would
Mm.
say stop chasing reach.
Mm.
Right? Don't get me wrong, reach is important and I know how it works, right? Especially if you're working in a large organization and you do reporting.
Mm.
Numbers are numbers. But start chasing resonance. I
Mm.
think that is really key here. And the fact that more is less. I mean, we keep hearing this, right? And I keep seeing more creators, more brands, more content. The
Mm.
answer is not to shout louder. The brands that
Mm.
is really winning right now are the ones that is investing in the depth of the relationship,
Mm.
not just distribution. Because at the end of the day, if you think about it, influencers or creators or key opinion leaders, whatever label you put that, it's actually a relationship, a human there, right? Who believe in your brand. And as a brand side, you're trying to cultivate a relationship through them, right?
Mm.
With them, actually, with them. And through their distribution, that's how you engage your audience, right?
Mm.
So I would say, yeah, so I repeat, the brands winning right now are the ones that is investing in the relationship, not necessarily just the distribution. The
Mm.
other thing is also the brief has to evolve, right? If a brand gives, let's say, 20 creators the same talking points, they're
Mm.
probably just going to get 20 versions of the same ad.
Mm.
That's not influence. That's just paid noise, in my opinion, right?
Mm.
Um, and also the differentiator here, I would say, would lead in the whole creator and brand feed. And I often say this to even my partners, right? I always tell them, The way serious fluents look at a brief, the way we come back to our clients with the creators to use,
Mm,
it's like matchmaking. It's so
mm,
important to understand the brand inside out and to try our very best using our platform, our robust data to seek for the right creators
mm,
because that makes a huge difference, right?
mm,
To be able to do that. So yeah, because it's not just about category match, right? But it's also the value alignment, the storytelling format, the trust that we are going to build through these creators and their communities. These are harder to fake and harder to copy.
mm,
The other thing that I also want to highlight is actually the platform diversification, this as well.
mm,
I think, a lot of brands kind of over index on Instagram, and I'm not saying that it's wrong. In the Instagram still works and does its magic. But it's also the TikTok, even recently the Xiaohongshu, that's really coming up, and especially for the younger Singaporeans. I think that's where the culture is actually being made. Last but not least, and this is something that I deeply believed in, the brands that will stand out in 2026 are those who are building long-term creator ecosystem, not
mm,
one-off campaigns. Because consistency of voice actually beats the frequency of post. And I see myself in many occasions. Don't get me wrong, I'm still happy to take a one-off campaign from anyone out there. But really, if you want to see a long-term return, I
mm.
think influencer marketing is something that you have to sort of put it as an always on channel rather than a one-off. And if I may just kind of tie this back to serious fluence, the clients who get the best results really aren't just the biggest spenders. They
Mm,
are the ones who actually treat creators as strategic partner and
mm,
not vendors. I think that mindset shift is super important for any brands out there who's listening to this.
mm. You just mentioned about a very critical point. Like some brand actually they make a brief and 20 different version of the same brief,
Yeah.
like distribute it out to 20 different voices of influencers. So far, we've been talking a lot about the point of view of companies. So how about consumers? Let's just take me as a consumer here, I have to
Mm-hmm.
admit that sometimes I feel very bored, like scrolling through Instagram with the review and recommendation of content creators telling me about their thought on the new items. But I have to admit, yes, I feel like they have the same tone, same content
Mm-hmm.
each time they talk about this product. And I have to
Mm-hmm.
say that up to some point, I was very saturated and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really want to enjoy that ad until the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to say that I represent the majority of Instagram users out there, but
Sure.
just thinking that in the future, will
Mm-hmm.
consumers in general be saturated due to like this huge boom of influencer marketing, which
Mm-hmm.
may somehow create diminishing returns at such a similar pace of how the market has bloomed?
Mm-hmm. I think saturation, like it or not, is already here. You
Mm,
know, I do see it. I mean, I admittedly, as a consumer myself, even though
mm,
you may call it, this is my job, right?
mm,
To be consuming a lot of content on social, and I do that. But saturation is already here. You
mm,
could be sitting here, do a test in the next 5, 10 minutes, see how many posts would you actually just scroll past, and
mm,
why? What are some of the posts that you were actually stopped? I still feel like there is still real intimacy
mm,
between us and the creator, right? Let me take a step back. There's just too much going on, especially in the macro level.
mm,
And the celebrities, the mega influencers content is just increasingly indistinguishable from the
mm,
traditional advertising, right? Consumers now have learned, like yourself, you've learned how to scroll past it. It's like, okay, another review, no thank you, let me move on.
yes.
Yeah, but there is actually an important distinction between influencer fatigue and influencer irrelevance. They're
Mm,
not the same. We need to understand that they're actually not the same. I think people or consumers now are very smart. They can actually tell the difference between an ad, between a paid ad, and something that is not authentic. I know we
mm,
keep using the word, I want authenticity, I want an honest opinion. I get that. But, you know, there's some truth in it. It is true that that's what consumers want, right? Consumers
Mm,
rather go for something that is not polished as a
mm,
piece of content, something that's really raw, that's been shot using my iPhone, for example.
mm,
And that brings me to another point, and that's something that we are very passionate about at Serious Fluent site. And that's actually the future of creator landscape to
mm,
us is actually the nano influencers, the everyday people. And there's some data that backs this up. So nano influencers, which we call it under 10K followers, they are actually hitting the 3 to 5% engagement in Singapore,
mm,
right? Versus much lower rates for the macro tier. Yes, they might be smaller. I get that, they might have a smaller fan base, but their voice is a lot more trustworthy. For example, and I use this all the time. Say if you happen to be a coffee lover, and let's just say 2 blocks from where you stay, there's a new cafe that just opened up. Really small cafe, unknown brand. You love the coffee, but you love the services, and you just kind of wait to take a photo or at least put it up on IG story and let someone know from your community that, hey, check
mm,
this out, right? And sorry, I'm just putting out there, right?
mm,
I suppose you have maybe 1,000 followers
mm,
versus somebody who has like 100K
mm,
and maybe doing something similar, but then the second day, this person will be promoting yet another coffee,
mm,
right? So I think that's the difference between nano and macro influencers, and hence why we think that the future of the creator market is really the everyday people, the nano influencers. That's something that I wanted to highlight. The other thing, it's also the diminishing returns will actually hit brands who keep running the same playbook.
mm,
Right? And if you keep doing the same thing, there's no breakthrough. Obviously, there won't be a breakthrough in terms of the output.
mm,
And I think, genuine storytelling, not just product placement, is super important. Sorry, I went back to the brand again. But that's also true. I mean, it's this connection, right? From a brand perspective, try not to think of a content piece. I mean, the starting point should not be where do I place my product.
mm,
That should be the last in terms of your thinking process.
mm,
It should really be the storytelling, right? And if you can tell a good piece of story via your creator, then I can almost guarantee you the results will be exactly what you need and even better than what you want. And
mm,
that's exactly how, from a consumer perspective, we just want that authenticity. We
mm,
want that story to be something that I can relate with.
mm. So, one last question from me, Hazel. Like, as
Sure.
influencer marketing in Singapore enters what appear to be more mature and
Mhm.
possibly more saturated, what structural shifts do you anticipate next? Are we moving toward like greater regulation, performance-based accountability, AI-driven creators, or consolidation within the creator economy? And importantly, what unintended side effects should brands start preparing for now to remain resilient in 2026 and beyond?
Wow, that's a lot. I want to say check, 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 check in everything that you've mentioned. I think performance accountability, this is already happening. Yeah.
Mm,
So in 2026, brands are asking for leads,
mm,
conversions, revenue attribution, right? Not just impression. And this
mm,
came about quite apparent for me in the last 18 months. I think now they are also under the pressure to deliver, right? Because every dollar that they spend, they want to see an ROI.
mm,
And I often say that influencer marketing is great at top of the funnel,
mm,
but increasingly a lot of brands are looking at the bottom of the funnel, which is, can influencer marketing give me leads? Can it
mm,
convert tomorrow? How can I actually, get revenue from it?
mm,
So this whole shift from likes to lead is really a defining structural change at this moment. That's
mm,
my own observation. Second thing, our favorite word, AI.
mm,
Oh, we keep hearing this, how AI. They're part of our life now, and there are people who say, "Oh, why can't I just use AI creators?"
Mm,
Sure, you can, and don't get me wrong. I have AI with me the whole time. To help with my work processes. But AI creators, the differentiator is this: we have to be careful here. They're still
mm,
not real, right?
mm,
So AI generated influencers actually lack the lived experience and the
mm,
community trust that makes influence work. We need to
mm,
remember this. That goes back to authenticity. That's what I call lived experience, right? And I think in AI creators, they find a role in specific use cases, but
mm,
they can never replace human creators for anything that requires genuine connection.
mm,
Yeah, and I want to highlight the word here, genuine connection is the keyword why a brand wants to use influencer marketing as part of
mm,
their marketing mix. And then the last thing, it's really consolidation. I think that's the most underrated shift. We're already seeing professional creator businesses kind of emerge, right? Go speak to some of the creators out there. They are now, doing multiple things. They
mm,
are a creator, yes, they have managers with them, they have editors, they also wearing the brand strategies hat. The long tail of individual creators will actually thin out, and the ones who will survive, right, would actually have to run their career or their creator business almost
mm,
like a media companies. They need to do many, many things at one go as a creator. So I often say that as a creator, as a career, it's no different from me running a business. It's almost the same, if
mm.
not sometimes more stressful.
Actually, right, your sharing just helped me realize, like, first, as a point of view of a social media user, sometimes I think influencer marketing creators, it seems like a very, I don't want to say like a very easy job. It seems like a job that brings fast profit, but also some kind of, at first, because you can see like how most influencers can help brand gain the reach, right? I thought,
Hmm.
okay, if you like, you have a good storytelling, you have good voice, good followers on Instagram, definitely you may gain profit from here. But yeah, after talking to you, I can see that, hey, this market is getting closer to the saturation point, or actually is in the the
Hmm.
period of saturation. And
Hmm.
how risky it is if brand they don't really recognize this as soon as possible and change their tactic instead of chasing after the metrics. They better think about building relationship with creators, influencers,
Hmm.
think about authenticity instead of invest in like celebrities. How about the micro one? So
Hmm.
actually, your sharing really like a reminder that help lighten me
Yeah.
how it should work to help the brand or like help the industry to surpass this saturation point where you can see like generations, they have smartphone, they have social media accounts, they
Hmm.
encounter tons of content every single minute, I have to say.
Hmm.
Mm,
Yeah, I really think so. And I really appreciate this opportunity to share with you. It's sort of like you make me stop my job, and take 10 steps
mm,
away from it and say, now let me do a quick reflection on how the last 8 years have been. 8 years ago, I was really just convincing brands to try influencer marketing,
mm,
right? Just like if you recall the word digital marketing, right?
mm,
That hasn't been that long ago.
mm,
And back then, a lot of us were like, especially marketeers, right? Were like jumping into digital marketing. What do we really know except to say, I have a Facebook account?
mm,
And in many ways, it's the same for influencer marketing, right? 8 years ago, I was convincing brands to try influencer marketing. It's something that they sort of heard about, but they haven't done enough. So they were not certain if this worked.
mm,
Today, things have changed so much. I'm helping them navigate a very mature, almost complex ecosystem,
mm,
right? The questions have completely changed. And in many ways, I like to think it's a good sign. It shows that, okay, the industry, it means this ecosystem has earned its seat at the table.
mm,
Now it's really saying, okay, now it's saturation, is this, is that. How do we overcome this collectively, both
mm,
from a brand perspective as well as the creators? Because it's
mm,
an ecosystem. And
mm,
ultimately, we serve the same audience, which is people like yourself and me. Yeah.
Okay, so that was a very long, but I have to say it was a nice chat with you, actually. It's really my pleasure to have you here with me today. Thank you so much for your viewpoints, and I hope we'll have some more chances to talk again and wish you all the best to come.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nora.
Okay, thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you.
So that's the end of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it and found the news interesting. For your convenient reference to further details of the news I mentioned, please find the links to my blog page in the description, where I have compiled all the related information. If you have any questions, or you want to discuss more on what I shared today, please leave your comments below. I would love to talk to each of you more as well. You can search for more episodes of this 10-minute C discussion podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Podcasts, and my own blog page. Thank you for listening to today's episode all the way to the end. And I hope to see you again in my next episode of 10-minute C discussion, which will be released soon. Once again, this is Nora, your host. Thank you so much and goodbye.